Peace, Mose. We just at the park on this beautiful day. We just out here at the park, and we got some of the youth here, somewhat part of my community service. We got the people out here teaching youth how to ride horses. But you see who only shows up. That's usually how it is when we do community service out here at AZ. But we do a lot out here, man, for the youth. Yeah, we do a lot out here for the youth. But that's just some of the getting the horseback trails. I'm not gonna get too close to the damn horses. But yeah, we do weight training. That's where after this, I'm gonna do weight training. I have like 6 youth and their mothers. And we teach history and civics 2 days a week. But yep, that's a little bit of I'm not gonna follow them all the way down. I'm gonna go back. Just some of the work that we do. But while they're going on their little trail, I'm gonna share something with my brothers and sisters. When I say we don't argue over man-made things like religion and isms, that's what, I don't care if you're a Moor, a Hebrew Israelite, whatever ism that you're under, anything that's man-made causes argument, and everybody can have a perspective. That's why the biblical scriptures are versions and things like that. And that's why as you grow up into your level, into your degrees, and after you pass through your houses and the wisdom become elevated, you get out of isms and man-made religion, and you get into things that can be proven, man. And I really think that's a lot of the issue from history and science. We get caught up in religion and arguing over religion and not really having a conversation about history and science, things that can be proven. But I want to share some with my brothers and sisters why my youth is out. And I got a couple books, and one of my students had me go on school with him. He was doing his report on so-called Black history. And most of my students, they have books that a lot of the teachers don't have. And even that the academia or the reading list that they have in public schools, they don't teach the children. And a lot of my youth have these books already. We're going to speak on this particular history, and we're going to speak on setting the record straight, America in black and white. We're going to talk about just a little about this, and then we're going to finish up. But I just wanted to share some things with my brothers and sisters. You know, you can believe anything you want, and that's what I tell brothers and sisters. But just look at families. A lot of families, they believe in different dogmas and things. Like some of the family members might be Christian, some family members might be Muslim, some family members might be whatever you believe in. And that keeps us separated. When we argue over things that really can't be proven, something that is a belief system. And the etymology of belief is a word called balai. So a lot of times our belief has nothing to do with what we know. We infuse our feelings in science, and that's where I have a problem with that as you elevate in your wisdom and your degrees more. So when I speak, on college campus and a lot of places, and then when I speak to brothers that say they're Moors or whatever religion they believe in, like I had a brother on my page, he would talk about, well, if you don't believe in hell, where Hitler and all this go. And I say, man, I'm not getting caught up in feelings. These are programmed things. If you understand words and if you study, you understand where hell and heaven is within. You understand these things and these principles. So it's just a lot to go into science, man, and we're not talking about nothing outside ourselves. We're talking about these zodiac laws. We're talking about this high science, things that we can prove. We're talking about this sun, These so-called 12 disciples that I show you is the zodiac, it's the constellations. You have the sun in the middle, and you have every 12 disciples off of it, which is the zodiac signs: January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. That's why I tell brothers, look at Moors. Most of them are arguing over what some man-made religion is about, and I say that's not adept wisdom. So I don't care if you Christian, Muslim, or whatever. I come in peace and I come in science. That's why I tell brothers, if you don't understand how this world operates, and you don't understand how yourself operates, how are you going to say you a living vessel of God? As your wisdom go higher, just think about it, Moors. When we talk about certain things, people take things out of context, and a person that gets you caught up in linguistic apartheid because they don't study language. When we talk about who was prayer for and what the time that was for the master to meditate and to reflect, and things that we just take totally out of context when you're under some dogma. And I'm talking about high science. When I talk about Mason has his messenger, we got to get to the etymology. All this science is more science. So when we're arguing over things, and when brothers saying this and that, that's religion. That can't be proven. Let's talk about things that can be proven. Let's talk about the zodiac. Let's talk about the constellations. Let's talk about every constellation have 3 deacons. Let's talk about the science and the Gnostics that's in the scriptures, that's in your body. Whoa, 1 second, family. Can you grab that? I'll get it. But it's just a few things, man, that we really should check ourselves, because when man honors man, he honors Allah within. When we come across our brothers with our lower self, with our religious feelings, no matter if it's words or deeds, that's not love, truth, peace, freedom, justice. If we can sit down and come from a how can I say, a scientific base with research, that's why I don't debate any brothers, because most things people are basing their so-called belief on or truth on is a belie, and it's religion. And I'm not here to argue no one's religion, because if you talk about a being that sits on some throne, then I'm not with that. I'm not with that. I'm not with none of that. And when I see Moors and everything dissing things, and I say you can't diss nothing. If the Circle 7 Quran speaks upon Jesus, which is Yahshua, if the nationality card says we honor and respect all the laws and the prophets, Jesus, which is Yahshua, Buddha, Confucius, Muhammad. I mean, we don't diss anything. And then I see Moors said dissing Masonry. I don't understand the etymology of Ma, mother, and the son. I don't understand their fairs. And I say, because you're getting connotated with false wisdom. That's all science. That's all science, man. And if anybody come in with that, that's spookism. And everybody know what I'm talking about. How did Noble Drew Ali go through the shrine, through the compass and the square? That's how you measure. That's how everything is measured. If we don't know that, then something is wrong. Because we're talking about science, not religion. So that's just a whole nother story. But I want to share something with my brothers and sisters from a historical basis. Like, when I say we get with history, and once you know yourself, and once you know your story, and you know all the story, and you know history, and can defend history with your story, you can defend international law, you can defend all law, you can defend local law, state law, and federal law, because you can't get those twisted. If you understand jurisdiction, if you understand all those things, if you understand metaphysics, if you understand language, this is what this is all about. If you understand alchemy, how your body is made up, if you understand what GMOs are, I mean, it's a lot of things that we've been connotated, and we don't study it. We argue over religion. We argue over man-made religion. And I tell brothers and sisters, there's so many versions of every religious book. You have so many versions of the Bible. You have so many versions of the Quran. Moors, if y'all understand, especially my brothers and sisters that's Nation of Islam, with the lessons of Fire Muhammad, I have them all. It speaks, that's all more science. When it's talk about the earth and how much water is on the earth and everything, if Moors not studying all that, things that can be proven, then it's no different from a religion preacher. We don't argue over religion. When more we talking about civics, I say this is a holy and divine creed. When I say I, self, law, and master, that means something. When I say Allah, when I say arm, leg, arm, head, when I tell Morris the 5-point star and a 6-point star, that's all connotated science. When I show more in the chosen people, and I'm gonna demonstrate to that today at our lecture at 6 o'clock at our school. We're gonna have about like 6 youth and a few ladies over, our empresses. I'm gonna show how in New York, before Israel was created a state in 1948, I show you the so-called U.S. corporation flag and the Moorish Zionist Jews, the flag that's in the back. I show these things from a historical perspective. It's nothing to argue about. Only thing brothers and sisters that's arguing about is over religion. And I don't argue over no religion. We could talk about when brothers be talking about law and they go into court and do this. I said, brother, your own brother can practice fraudulent concealment. Research that. Stop thinking something outside. Your own brother can practice fraudulent concealment when they have you going to do something that they wouldn't do. And they're holding something from you, knowing if you know, you wouldn't do that. That's fraudulent concealment. I promise you. Because we're looking at something that's outdated. We're looking at some treaties that's been abolished. Man, the U.S. broke every damn treaty. If we don't understand that, then it's really no explanation. That's why when I talk about the zodiac laws and it's things that can stand true, that can stand proven, and we don't study it, we get it twisted because it's, once again, it's man-made religion. It's isms. And the higher science to adapt, we know better than this. When we talk about the Sufism, we talk about this synchronicity of understanding how not only you work, but the world works. Not only how the world works, but how organized law works, how this judicial system works. If any more is always in court, that means he's not operating 720. I can care less what if you don't know how this earth plane operates and you running back and forth to court, that means you are a criminal. I'm telling you, if you understand this science and you understand these zodiac laws, you won't even be in their chambers. When a person say you don't have jurisdiction, when you go, that means you are what? Obligor. That means you're obligated. And I'm talking about just like words technology, when brothers use these gibberish dictionaries and these, how can I call it, modern dictionaries to explain things that was written in different languages. A lot of things was written in different languages and we don't understand it because we're not studying. Like Sheikh Anta Diop, most of his science was written in different languages. And if any brother say I'm lying, they can research it. John Henry Clark rewrote a lot of his literature in English. Morris, when I say we have to study, man, and get out of this man-made religion to separate us. When I show you the so-called Hebrew, the Morris, all the same. I show you the chosen one. When I show you the book, when I show you the stole, you've been connotated. And getting out of science and getting out of real masonry, not understanding it. Let somebody get you caught up in spookism, man. I promise you. So let's finish. Let me give you a little history, man, on some things that we should talk about. And this is what my students, when I say a lot of things are elementary, and I don't say those things to belittle anyone, because a lot of the science was already there. So when I say elementary, I'm talking about this stuff was already in the elements. When I say elementary, I don't use words to belittle anyone, because I'm just a teacher. I'm just a teacher and a messenger. And if you understand words and angels and things, you will see when you understand the etymology of angel, all of you are angels. When you understand the etymology of Muslims, you are a Muslim. It takes some things to create a Muslim. Words have duality. And those that are enlightened understand what I'm saying. You can ask any teacher from a different perspective. I don't care what pigmentation they have. Ask them what were the so-called African black, whatever you want to call them, before the 1800s. Before the American Revolution. I guarantee you they tell you more. In all literature. It's just what it is, man. But some brothers not acting in truth and peace. You can go to any judicial system. I'm going to demonstrate this, man. I'm going back to my hometown, Michigan, because we have land there through our organization. And I'm going to go right to this downtown and show you. When you come in love, truth, peace, freedom, justice, they'll tell you. Nothing is a secret. we sit and argue with our brother and sister over something, but we won't argue over or debate the things that we've been taught pseudo academia for years and years, and our children still go to that. And we won't debate that and stand up against it, but we will sit up here and argue with our brothers and sisters over religious dogma and post stuff and debating over stupid stuff, but not getting to the root of the issue. And the root of the whole discussion is self-government being controlling your government, controlling your education, controlling your history, controlling your so-called spirituality in the parameters of the law, which can be done. So when we talk about things more like history, like intelligence and exploration, when my students write right now, it's so-called Black History Month, and my students wrote about Estevanco, a Negro from Morocco, was one of the party of four to cross the Northern American continent in 1536 for the first time. And in 1539, he headed an expedition that discovered Arizona, Moors, and New Mexico. He also served to open up the Southwest and the states west of Florida, as far as the Pacific, Moors. See, this is a lot of stuff that when you understand history, when I talk about Moors, get a book called, Medical Apartheid. Like Imhotep in ancient Egypt was the real father of medicine. He lived from about 2300 BC. Greece and Rome had their knowledge of medicine from him. In Rome, he was worshipped as the Prince of Peace in the form of a black man. His Ethiopian portrait shows him a Negro. I'm telling you, Imhotep was also prime minister to King Zoer, Z-O-E-R, as well as the foremost architect of his time. That's why they say eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die, has been traced to him. Hippocrates, the so-called father of medicine, lived 2,000 years after Imhotep. And this is the things that we can research. It's no arguments. Ibn Ali, an African Negro, was private physician to Charles VII, King of France, from 1403 to 1465, Moors. When the king fell dangerously ill, Ali was sent for him to be cured. After that, he was a member in the king's suite. I can go on and on. Like France had 6 color cabinet ministers. Serviano de Herrera in 1887, Senator Henry Lenry in 1915 and 1918 and 1934, Alice Delmont in 1928. What's up, Mo? Blaise Diogene, D-I-A-G-N-E, 1931. Gratian Candice, 1932. Gaston Monerville, 1937. The Hindia, a minister of the public works, built some of France's finest roads. And this is what my brother, like, man, yeah, this is what my students, we gotta study. So we have something to compare to. Like when brothers say the King James Version, I say, man, I don't care what King Version Bible you get. The King James 1611 that comes with the Apocrypha, the Old and the New, that's great. But also then you have the Holy Name Bible. That's why if you read the preface where it says you don't pray to God, I don't care how you spell it, G-O-D or G-A-W-D. All in the preface. I did that science and we built on that. But the oldest and most noted statue in the world bears the face of a Negro, the Sphinx of Giza, which was worshipped as Horus, the sun god of light and life. These are a lot of things that you can say and you can research. Also, the Bible really originated in ancient Egypt, Moors, where the population, according to Herodotus and Aristotle, was black. To their pen, when we're talking about Africa was named after some European, no, it ain't. November 15th, 218 BC, Hannibal, a full-blooded Negro, marching through conquered territory in Spain, France, performed the astounding feat of crossing the Alps. And you know why Africa was named after that, when you get nicknamed when he defeated the Carthaginian general. But we argue over religion. Like the word slavery. Slave was originally applied to the Albions, or the white people. It's just what it is when you research a white cargo and you get caught up in some transatlantic slave trade. And I tell brothers and sisters, look up the Arab slave trade. A lot of people were here already. When you let somebody tell you that your last name is a slave name, when I break things down, It's just we getting caught up in false doctrine. But it comes from Slav, S-L-A-V, a Russian people, captured by the Germans. The first slaves held in the United States were not black. They were Albion or whites. It's just history. You can research this. I come from no prejudice. They were Europeans, mostly British, who died like flies on the slave ships across. On one voyage, 1,100 perished out of 1,500. At another time, 350 out of 400. In Virginia, white servitude was for a limited period, but was sometimes extended to life. In the West Indies, particularly Moors, in the case of the Irish, it was for life. These are stuff that you can research. In 1670, Virginia passed a law forbidding Negroes from buying white people. Did you know that? Research it. White children were kidnapped in the British Isles at the rate of slavery, 1,000 years in the 17th and the 18th centuries, and sold into slavery in Americas and the West Indies. It's just what it is. Prince Abd el-Rahman, a highly educated grandson of the Emperor of Timbuktu, was captured in a battle and sold into slavery in America. Years later, a white doctor who had traveled in the land saw him at Natchez, Mississippi. Raham was freed in 1829. $4,000 was paid for the liberation of his children. You can research this, family. In 1860, there were 487,000 free Negroes in the United States, some of whom owned slaves. C.D. Wilson estimated that there were 6,230 Negro slaveholders. The tax returns of Charleston, South Carolina for 1860 showed 132 Negro slaveholders with 390 slaves. So you see, when Moors just, this the thing, man. When they want to argue over religion and say who did this and who did that, Negroes and blacks, whatever you want to call them, was killing and slaving each other forever. My brother was killed by a Negro, black or colored. My own friend I grew up with, his brother killed him. What are you saying? You saying that a hat or a fez made the people kill? You got to be crazy. That's the dumbest thing ever. We don't know the essence of the turban and the fez. And everywhere I go, especially like when I'm on college campuses, especially when I was doing my master's on Grand Canyon University, every European Albion knew everything. They didn't think I was no Muslim per se, other no Farrakhan. They knew the wisdom because I operated in love, truth, peace, freedom, justice, and I displayed it every time I spoke. And when a person asked me what this and what that is, I explained it eloquently, you know, with peace. Because you should be able to explain anything that you love dearly, that's sacred to your heart, with peace. And stand on it at all times. But what I really want to show you, what my student was showing the teachers today, it really was funny. Because he was talking about the most ancient name the so-called black people are Nisu, N-E-H-E-S-U, or Nubian, which they kind of connotated Ethiopian and more from ancient Egypt. When I showed, when I played a film for him, we was at the YMCA and I was teaching them history to show to their teachers, and he pulled up the YouTube flick of a spelling bee, and anybody can pull that up. The spelling bee was a young fella, and they asked him how to spell Nagas, and you should have seen the look on the little fella face. Yeah, I teach adults and children. We teach all day. I teach. I go to the schools. I teach at the YMCA 3 days a week. But and when he taught and when he said Nagas, spelled Nagas, it was amazing because the little boy didn't know where to come from. And then he said, "Well, can you put it in a sentence? Can you give me the etymology? Could you give me the history?" Once he did that, he spelt it, N-A-G, Nagas. He spelt it. So what I tell people, what that proved and what that showed, that it's an ancient people. From historical perspective, if you can research that, and then you can look at it. I also researched a film called The Africans of Asia. If you don't know that, I demonstrated that a while ago. It's a film called The Africans in Asia. It's an old film. I'm gonna play it for you, and I'm gonna also play a film for you how they tried to make the Egyptian classify itself as a white man. It's a lot of history, and so we just teach from a perspective of scholarship with things that can be proven and documents from a peer-reviewed scholarly research. See, when we quote J.A. Rogers, this is used on a university. When I tell people that J.A. Rogers was black, was so-called black man, Moorish, it's facts. He was honored by our Emperor Haile Selassie. I'm going to show you it. But a Negro comes from the river Niger, or they like to call it nigger, however you want to pronunciate it. Niger found its way into Latin, and since the people from that great region were dark-skinned, nigger or Niger of the great river. Black and color like white are, on the other hand, European words, Moors. When I talk about, all you got to do is get the 1599 Geneva Bible. It don't say, my nose running because we outside. They on them horses, fire. It don't say nothing about no Ethiopian, African. It strictly says Moor. Ed Melanek the Moor, all through Moor, were popularly used to describe the so-called blacks until the 1500s. Shakespeare used Negro only once and used it synonymously with Moor. Africa coming from the ancient Egyptian Afruka, A-F-R-U-I-K-A. I demonstrated that a while ago. Or Karifa, or Kafrika, K-A-F-R-I-C-A. The land of the Kefir, K-A-F-F-I-R. Like when we talk about the etymology of Edimon, like Admiral, the French equivalent, Admiral, A-M-R-A-L, were adopted as the result of the great admiration held for the Negroid, the sea rovers, who used to scour the coast of Europe for slaves as late as the 19th century. They connotated as pirates. That's where you get the Emry Albar, the Lord of the Seas, the commander of the sea rovers. I mean, we can go on and on with the wisdom, but this is what I really wanted to show my brothers and sisters, and I want you to take notes and research it. Coming back. Yeah, we got the youth out here at the park on horses today. Through our science temple and school, the Burning Bush Tabernacle Science Temple and School, we bring kids out and do charitable things. Like, I'm not on Instagram no more. Like last year, we had a lot of people at the park bring out all the animals and things. We do a lot. But anyway, so what I'm going to show you, this how I tell you that you must understand history and how to stand strong on your square. And it's not just standing with your feet out. It's erasing pseudo-academia. It's erasing false religion. I'm going to show you a picture. And the first thing a person is thinking, that's the Ku Klux Klan. Watch this science, though. Watch this science. When I talk about the Wiggum Party, when I talk about everything is copycatted, when you see them back in the day, you see them judges in court and they got them big wigs on, they copying somebody. When you see in Moscow with them big hats on, they copying something. So listen, the various U.S. census reported consistently show that Africans are longer lived than white Americans. That's why a lot of the Europeans was coming over to the continent of Mexico, because a lot of the Europeans were dying at a fast rate. In 1900, there were 873 whites who had reached the age of 100 and over. So we know that history. But watch this. I'm going to give you some history. It's very likely to, Moors, listen to this, that some of the Negroes exaggerated their longevity in those times. But watch this. The U.S. census, even when wrong, is the nearest we have to accuracy on subject of where people are and how many. The 1830 census showed 2,120 Negro centurions to 531 whites. Centurions among Negro women outnumbered the Negro men 2 to 1. Now listen to this. Speaking of the parade of the Negro Brotherhood in Seville, follow me. That's that picture you saw. You thought it was the Klan. Listen to me. Speaking of the parade of the Negro Brotherhood in Seville, Spain in 1926, Arthur Schomburg, S-C-H-O-M-B-U-R-G, curator of the Carnegie Library, West 135th Street, New York City, says, it was only human to wish to examine the garments of the Brotherhood of the Negroes after observing the similarity to the white robes and collars used by the Ku Klux Klan of the country. To all appearances, the American organization copied the dress of those believers in Christ. Not even in garments, Moors, it seems, is the American order original. They are eventually copied faithfully from a very sacred brotherhood whose devoted won them the love and gratitude of the Spanish people from king to peasant, pontiff to believer. Opportunity MAGA, page 164, June 1926, New York. You can research this stuff. So today, the descendants of these Spanish Negroes are quite bleached from mixing with their white neighbors. I'm reading from the literature, Moors. I'm giving you 100 amazing facts about the Negro, complete proof of J.A. Rogers, but the old Negro traditions remain. The Negro Church of Nustra, N-U-S-T-R-A, Sonora de Los Angeles, and the Perio Carmona is still maintained by them. Priests, guides, and others in Seville informed me that the garb is exactly like that of centuries ago, Moors. From early information of these Negro or of the Negritos, as they are called in Seville, you can see Zunia's Annales de Seville, published in Madrid in 1677, Moors. Later, the Negroes rose to a position of prominence, and had a count, after whom one of the streets is still named, Moors. And if the originators of the Ku Klux Klan did not copy the garb of these Negroes, then the coincidence is really amazing, isn't it? So I'm going to show you, the picture below is the Parade of Seville, Negro Order. You see it, Moors? I know y'all see it. I told you, nothing come from the West. Everything is copied. But we arguing over religion and things, and I say, man, I deal with the zodiac laws. This is higher wisdom. This is 720. We're not coming with no religion, arguing about something that can't be proven. When the biblical scripture, when I tell you you are gods, and everything that's in the constellations is right in your brain, in your hippocampus. If you look at the pictures and things, Michelangelo pointing that finger, God or whatever touch it, that's your brain. And it's the woman's uterus. It's just facts. Holly's gold medal awarded to J.A. Rogers. You know? And so when we talk about America history in black and white, I mean, these are things that we got to touch upon. When the person telling you shouldn't understand all law and history and everything. When I tell you, back then, it wasn't right to be a Democrat. Back then, and even today, I could care about any other political parties. But it's so much when I talk about Prince Ripple, when I demonstrated how in the Battle of Bunker Hill, how it took all the Moorish brothers out. It took Peter Salmon out, a Moorish patriot who was a hero of the 1775 Battle of Bunker Hill. He also fought as one of the legendary Minutemen and was a soldier at the Battle of Saratoga at Stony Point. A monument was erected in his memory in Massachusetts. What about the famous picture of 1776 crossing the Delaware on Christmas night? You know? What about, I have no if there's no temples in Moors. I just want to be honest with things. I've been to temples, a lot of temples, no disrespect to no one, no their science, but a lot of stuff a lot of history is not taught, and that's what, when I say it's a higher wisdom, we're supposed to teach this science. Our kids are supposed to stand strong and wear their national headdress and their turbans. And when they do reports in those schools, in those places, they record their history from scholarship. That's what civic, when brothers say, all they teach is civics, ask them what's the Eddie Mind, what's the definition of civics? Please. If they can't give you the Eddie Mind definition of civics, then you need to run from that. And then if they can't tell you what divine creed of Moorish Islam is, but on that in Delaware night, that was Prince Ripple and Oliver Cromwell, two Moorish patriots who served George Washington and American generals. I mean, we stand on we teach scholarship, man. Everywhere I go, I teach scholarship. That's why I'm welcome to teach in elementaries and schools where our young Moorish brothers and our young Moorish sisters are at. And I show them, yeah, black is beautiful, but it damn sure ain't your nationality. And I can show you all through history, law, and religion that you are a Moor. In America, you are a Moorish American. There's no reason to be afraid of that. Man, watch me show you. I'm going to show y'all some other stuff that we got to roll in history. Let me see. Let me show some history. Let me see. I'll show you some that'll really have you laughing. Few Americans are aware that many of the soldiers who fought during the American Revolution were Moors. And unlike the later segregated regiment in the Civil War, many of the units in the American Revolution were fully integrated, with blacks or Moorish patriots fighting with the Europeans. We had scholars back in the day named William Neal, was an award-winning young scholar in Boston during the 1830s who studied law and became the first black, but I'm using Moorish. I'm taking black out of everything. The first Moorish American to hold a post in the federal government in 1852. He authored services of colored Americans in the wars of 1776 and 1812. And 3 years later, he penned The Colored Patriot of the American Revolution. I mean, we can go on and on with the wisdom, man. We can go on and on with the wisdom. Let's see. William Lloyd Garrison, look him up. Let me get to some science. I'm finna show you something that we can stand on. Listen to this. Let's see. Democrat Preston Brooks attacking Republican Charles Sumner for speaking against slavery. See, when people talk about where's the, they had everything was recorded. They had newspapers, man. They showed their ways. They showed their ways. Y'all know who that is right there, don't you? We can read it. Let me see. In 1856, the Republican Party entered its first presidential election, running Republican John C. Fremont against Democratic James Buchanan. In that election, the Republican Party issued its first ever party platform. It was a short document with only 9 planks in the platform, but significantly, 6 of the 9 planks set forth bold declarations of equality and civil rights for African Americans based on the principles of the Declaration of Independence. You hear what they say is civil rights, not human rights. That's what I teach. It's a difference. The Democratic platform, matter of fact, when I talk about how the so-called Christian calendar add years to the Moorish calendar, I teach y'all, we teach that from facts. And you can sit down and talk to anyone from a scholarly perspective that understand history and science, they'll tell you. But the Democrat platform of that year took an opposite position, strongly defining slavery and warning. Amazingly, according to the Democrats in 1856, Indian slavery would not only be dangerous, but will also ruin the happiness of the people. Despite such clear differences, the Republican lost the election. The next year, 1857, a democratically controlled Supreme Court delivered the Dred Scott decision, declaring that blacks were not persons or citizens, but instead were property, and therefore had no rights. In fact, quoting from the infamous decision, Democrats on the court announced that blacks had no rights which the white man was bound to respect, and that the Negro might justly and lawfully be reduced to slavery for his benefit. In the 1860 presidential election, Republican Abraham Lincoln ran against Democratic U.S. Senator Stephen Douglas of Illinois. Before I go on, before Abraham Lincoln was even a president, don't you know he was an attorney? When I know y'all saw the wisdom, he defended the Moore in court. When they tried to say he was black, but I just gave you a black can have nothing. He said, is it a crime that my client's skin is black? He's not African American. He's a Moor. This is history. You can find this. See, listen, the Republican platform of the 1860 blasted both the Fugitive Slave Law and the Dred Scott decision and announced its continued intent to end slavery and secure equal civil rights for blacks. Civil rights. Not human rights, civil rights. I see y'all catching it. That's why I say you got to study and research every single word, every piece. And if you're not willing to do the research, then that's on you. On the other hand, the Democrats in the 18th, I gave you that. Okay. In fact, Democrats even handed out copies of the Dred Scott decision along with the platform to affirm their belief that it was proper to have slavery and to hold African Americans in bondage. I'm gonna give you some more before we leave. Man, they gone for a long time, man. Okay, that's why I ain't get it in the horse, man. I failed one time, so I'll let them ride the horse. So let's see, where we at? I want to show you something before we leave. This is a good one. Extract from the reconstructed Constitution of the state of Louisiana, of the distinguished members of the Convention and Assembly, 1868. Listen, look at these brothers. Look at these Moors. Look at these Moors, man. So when we talk about history, we talk about law and things, somebody that's talking, they don't know. Because they're going on a religion, what somebody telling them. Let's watch. I'm going to show you something amazing. Let me see, where that, when we talk about analogies and things, where does it go? I want to show you something. Let's go how you crack it up. Okay, I'm gonna show you this picture right here. This is a good one. The first colored senator and its representatives. Listen to this. Despite the strident opposition throughout the South states, the new Constitution were eventually passed, and a number of black, I'm gonna say Moorish Americans were elected to national office. An 1872 print by Currier and Ives showed the first 7 black Moorish Americans elected to the U.S. Congress. All were Republicans. On the left side of the group was Hiram Rose Reeves from Mississippi, an ordained minister. He served as a missionary and pastor, recruited 3 black regiments, and was a chaplain for the Civil Wars. Reveals became America's first Moorish U.S. senator. Next was Benjamin Turner of Alabama. Turner was a slave during the Civil War, but within 5 years after the war, had become a wealthy and prosperous businessman. You hear that? A wealthy and prosperous businessman. Moors, this is America history in black and white. You will see the European demonstrating on this, and all my students, and when they hit me up, they say, "Man, you demonstrated on this. I demonstrated on this 4 years ago." That's why I say elementary. When I say a lot of the stuff that they're talking about is elementary, it's already in the elements. And if you adapt it, if you're a real teacher, a philosopher, and a theosophist, you share the wisdom. There's nothing new under the sun when they use that analogy. Third was Robert D. Large of South Carolina, born a slave. Within 3 years from the end of the war, he was serving the State House. He also chaired the Republican Party Platform Committee and became a statewide elected official. Fourth was Josiah Walls of Florida. Walls was a slave during the Civil War and was forced to fight for the Confederate Army. After he was captured by Union troops, he promptly enlisted as a Union soldier and became an officer. Following his election to Congress, his credentials were challenged by Democrats, and he was twice sent home. He was re-elected after the first challenge, but during the second challenge, Democrats regained control of Florida, and he was prevented from returning. You see how all these Moors back then, yeah, they grew up slave, but look what they've done. We must teach this truth, and not just in our temples arguing over some religion or what this taught. That ain't doing enough for our babies. All they see us arguing over some man-made religion. Fifth was Jefferson Long of Georgia, born a slave. He was self-educated and built a thriving business. Just like myself, when I say we must produce commerce. When I say I have a whole warehouse of suits. When I say I'm the Moorish haberdasher. I teach history. We do workout. We do training. We have a real organization. But he was elected during, okay, they got that. Okay, I told you that. Fifth was Jefferson Long of Georgia, born a slave. He was self-educated. I told you that. He was elected to Congress as a Republican. Democrats boycotted his business, causing him great financial loss. Long was the first Moorish American to deliver a congressional speech in the U.S. House. Sixth was Joseph Hayne Rainey of South Carolina, born a slave. He actually served briefly as Speaker of the House and was in Congress longer than any other Moorish American from that era. The seventh was Robert Brown Elliott, also of South Carolina. He was also educated, reading in Spanish, French, and Latin. In Congress, he led in the passage of civil rights bills over the strident opposition of congressional Democrats. He later became Speaker of the House and the Senate in the state legislature. We talk about science and wisdom, things to be proved. Not no man-made religion that they tell you that your skin color is a curse, or your skin color has something to do with your nationality. Has nothing to do with it. But here go the picture of the brothers. Here go the picture of the brothers. I'm gonna give you one more analogy and we out of here, man. I gotta show you this. Gonna have you cracking up. Gonna have you cracking up. I don't wanna lose all the cards. All right. Whoa, oh, they back. All right, let me finish this up. Hold on. Let me finish this. And let me find it. Hold on. I gotta find it. My hand's freezing, y'all. But I'll do it for my youth, man. Ooh-wee. My hands are freezing. Let me find it. Ah, here we go. Watch this. Let me show y'all the horses. Hold on. And like I said, when we do things only It's the same people show up. Like we in Arizona, so you know what nationality show up a lot. But we're gonna have another one for our youth this weekend. A lot of them couldn't show up, but I just want to show pictures if you can see. I don't know if you can see them. I got on it earlier, but that was enough for me. I don't ride them horses too much. But I'm gonna show you some allegory picture, and then we out. Watch this, Morris. All right, I'm gonna show you this picture, and I'm gonna ask you, what do you think it's about? When a person telling you not to do this and not to do that, but not explaining why not to do it or why you should do it. How many people know what that is? Look at, we have the Empress down, and look what you see getting cut off. Everybody see that, right? So I'm gonna highlight that, and then we gone. And then I'm gonna show a bigger picture. Hold on, and then I'm gonna explain it. I'm gonna show a bigger picture. Watch this. I'm gonna show a bigger picture. Watch. I'm gonna read it to you. Watch this, Morris. When we say we don't have to believe or guess anything because truth have no sides, and that's why I say I go with truth. No matter what, if it's my Morris brother, everything, if we're studying and we're not studying and we prove that we're going on our feelings, which is our lower self, which is only 360 of wisdom, we must correct it. So watch this. Southern Redemption was the effort of Southern Democrats to restore the South to the racial condition of white supremacy that had existed before the Civil War. The best way for the newly restored Democrat legislatures to redeem their state from what had occurred to them following the Civil War was to deprive black Americans, Moorish Americans, of their political rights by the passage of the state law that restricted, removed, or even blatantly violated their civil rights, as well as through the prominent repeal of state reconstruction laws that had suppressed Klan violence. They keep talking about civil rights, but not human rights. That's the first mistake. Representative John Roy Lynch, who not only had helped pass the original federal civil rights law, but had also witnessed their subsequent violation at the state level throughout the period of Southern Redemption. He noted the opposition to civil rights in the South is confined almost exclusively to states under Democrat control. Democrats under how important it was to their survival to prevent blacks from voting or Moors from voting. In fact, an illustration from that period showed an allegory of the Bible story Samson, who lost his strength when his hair was cut. Follow me, Moors. In that illustration, let me show it again because I love this part. And I'm going to show the bigger picture when I get to the other page. Oh, I'm dropping everything. Okay. Woo. Hold on. Okay, in fact, the illustration was from that period showed the allegory Bible story of Samson, who lost his strength when his hair was cut. In that illustration, the woman named Southern Democracy has used her razor, called the lost cause regained, to cut the black Samson's hair and cause him to lose his strength. And what is his hair? His strength, question Moors, is called suffrage or voting. With the strength or the vote of the Moorish American removed, various Democrat groups and leaders were rejoicing in the background. Confederates, the KKK, pro-slavery forces, and several famous Democratic leaders of that day included General Nathan Bedford Forrest, the first Grand Wizard of the Klan. By the way, notice the phrase, the Democratic barbecue, and the Democrats are burning various books in the foreground, including the Bible. You can look at all this. Look, I can show you. This was in their papers and stuff. So we just shared a little history, man, with my brothers and sisters. When I say we demonstrate, there's so much history that we don't know. When I tell you more, history was told in reverse. You got to get that white and black thing out of your head because some of your own brothers have taken an oath to tell you false doctrine, to tell you false history, and have you caught up in arguing over religion and not being master masons and not understanding the zodiac laws and not understanding mathematics and alphabet and not understanding the ninth power of 9. Come on, Moors. Tune into our lecture at 6 o'clock at our school, at our temple. We're going to teach a little more zodiac history. Around, I say, about 5:30 Pacific time. I love you all, Moors.